be considerably noting of is compliances. Cost of non-compliance under GST is very high. In fact, the changes that we are going to see would also indicate various things about it. Though even though GST made under self-assessment, where the returns are being self-assessed and filed, but if someone is not complying with the provisions of the law, that is going to become a costly exercise. It is better we comply with the provisions of the law in time. So let's begin with the amendments that are proposed to happen in CGST Act. Over to you, Ashika.
Thank you, sir. So, good afternoon, everyone. As sir said, we will be discussing about the changes proposed in budget only with respect to GST. So, starting with it, the total 16 clauses are there in finance bill by which changes has been proposed in GST, out of which 15 relates to CGST and 1 relate to IGST. So starting with amendment in CGST Act. Number 1, Section 7. Section 7 deals with scope of supply. The scope of supply has been retrospectively amended with effect from 1st July 2017. In this, a new clause has been sub-inserted. By inserting this clause, basically, now a supply of goods or service between a club or association to its members had been made taxable. This clause has been inserted to overcome the judgment of Honorable Supreme Court in the case of Calcutta Club Limited. In that case, the Honorable Supreme Court has held that supply of goods or service by a club or association to a member cannot be considered as taxable due to doctrine of mutuality, as one cannot provide service to oneself. To overcome this judgment, this new clause has been inserted. And by way of explanation, a deeming fiction has been created that a club or association and its member would be considered as two different persons. Therefore, any supply of goods or service by a club or association to a member or vice versa would be taxable. So basically, by inserting this clause, the government has unsettled the settled legal settled legal judgment. So which is more likely to create more problems, because there may be some of the association or club who may be on the basis of doctrine of mutuality were not paying tax. Now, by this retrospective amendment, it may be litigation is going to increase. To align with these changes in Section 7, Schedule 2 has also been amended. What is Schedule 2? As we know, Schedule 2 is basically, it is for determination of classification of supply of goods or service. It is basically for classifying whether it is a goods or service. In this para 7, which provide that supply of goods by an unincorporated association or a body corporate to a member for a cash, deferred payment or other for a consideration will be considered as supply of goods. Now this has been omitted as new clause under Section 7 has been inserted. Moving on to point 2, Section 16.
Yeah, so before we move on to the Section 16, I would like to add a point here under 7AA. See, first and foremost, this is a retrospective amendment, which means if someone has relied upon any of the earlier case law saying that there would not be any levy to the club and they have not paid any taxes, now this is now leviable to tax from 1st July 2017. Most of you might be thinking, okay, I am not in the business, or my entity is not dealing with any of the club. If you read the provisions of 7AA, it says the activities or a transaction by a person to its member or its constituents, which means it is talking about an activity of my own self with my members. All this while, we used to say that the taxation for clubs or unincorporated bodies do not arise because of mutuality consideration. I cannot make a supply to my own self, including resident welfare associations, even though there is an exemption provided up to 7,500 rupees per member per month. There was a one theory which used to be said that how can there be treated as a supply for my own self? Now here, though they did not specifically said that this is for the clubs, even though they would want to set aside the Calcutta club case, that is where in the explanation they have clearly given that notwithstanding anything contained in any other law for time being in force or any judgment or decree or order of any court, by virtue of it, now you may ask, can the act override a decree given by the court? The answer is yes, because the verdict which is given in the Calcutta Club case is from the arising from the erstwhile laws. However, the service tax provisions are borrowed in the almost mutatis same way to the GST. However, the wordings under GST is different. To subsection 17, the word business is very wide, which means the SSC is now expected to be very careful that if he is earning any income in the P&L and that is not subjected to GST, they have to doubly check why GST is not applicable and cannot be a silent that it is a no supply transaction. Section 7 is very wide enough. Surprisingly, the levy of GST is only on goods and services. But however, in this case, when you look at 7AA, 7A, they have specifically used supply of goods or services, but 7AA, they are talking about activities or transactions. Now, most of the large corporates, they have employee welfare associations. Now, these associations collect pool money or for celebrating a festival. No, even that's an activity, it's a transaction. There is no supply of goods or services there. All those transactions are now intended to be taxed. So this is more important. You may set aside a Calcutta club saying that I am not a club, but you should now explore if your organization having an association of employees or any of those things, even those would be coming under the purview of this expanded scope of supply. And friends, if you have any doubts, feel free to put your questions in the chat, and as and when it comes, we will take. Let's move to the next amendment, which is on input tax credit.
Now, section 16. It deals with eligibility and condition for taking ITC. We all know that there are 4 conditions for taking ITC. First, we should be in process of tax invoice. We should have received the goods or services. Supplier must have paid the tax. And we as a recipient have regularly filed our return. Now in this, one more condition has been inserted, and that is that we would be eligible for ITC only when our supplier has furnished the detail of same in GSTR 1. So until or unless they furnish the detail, we won't be able to avail the credit. Now in this rule 36(4), which provide a capping in case of if some of the missing invoices, it provides 5% capping with effect from 1st Jan 2021. Now it can be questioned that prior to this clause, there was no legal backing to rule 36(4). So as of now, so prior to this clause, it was contrary and ultra vires. So accordingly, we should be earlier earlier be able to avail 100% credit of whatever ITC or invoices we have received and books in the book in the our books of account. Sir, do you want to add something?
Sorry, some problem with my mic. So I'm just rejoining. Okay, so a couple of things which I would like to add here is first and foremost, the conditions which is given under section 16 are have to be followed very meticulously. All this while we were saying that okay, table 8A of GSTR 9 can be ignored for the purpose of annual return filing. Now, with the insertion of 16(2)AA, in fact, this seems to be a little fondy this time. Both the important sections are being inserted as AA. This 2AA is now a little wide and clear, saying that the government will be giving you a credit only if the supplier files their GSTR1 and to you as a recipient, the input tax credit is visible in GSTR2A. Only then the input tax credit would be allowed. Now you may say that, okay, this is not valid, or this is, I cannot be held responsible for something which the supplier has to do. And there are definitely a lot of favorable judgments in the earlier laws. The buyer cannot be responsible for the credit loss if the supplier did not do a good job. But here I would like to mention couple of things. The government is saying that the, again, section 155, where the onus of proving the credit, the onus is always on the recipient. Even though we had already ABCD4 conditions, government wants an extra cautious, and now they have mentioned even this fifth condition to be really followed, which is the supplier should upload the details under section 737. 37 talking about statement of outward supplies. So the supplier has to file their GSTR1 and it shall be communicated in the manner in which it is specified. The manner in which is communicated is specified in Rule 60, which says various clauses in 2A. So indirectly, the government is saying that if there is no visibility in GSTR 2A, your credit will be blocked. Now, some of the questions people may have is, I have made a purchase, I have the purchase invoice, I have the e-way bill, I have made the payment using online, I have valid documents, I have also got an indemnity or a letter from the supplier that he has made an error in filing GSTR1. He has by mistake filed it in GSTR1 table 7, which is B2C, instead of table 4 B2B. Can the recipient or the buyer take an input tax credit of it? Again, the answer would be the input tax credit for it would not be allowed. The government will put a cap on it and they said this credit will not be allowed. So one has to be careful. What is that one can do? I again always advise, use technology. Please start doing reconciliation every month. In fact, e-invoice has started. E-invoice will help you to, in a real time, know whether the supplier is uploading the details or not. Because with e-invoice, a QR code on the invoice will give you a confidence that the supplier has uploaded this to GSTR1. So this is one way you can know that, okay, the suppliers are compliant. There might be a lot of suppliers who are not under e-invoice. So you need to have a right software, a proper software, wherein you do the reconciliation every month. The reconciliation of your purchase data with the portal value is every month mandatory. With the insertion of 16(2)AA, you may now ask, is 36(4) still relevant? Meaning, can I take additional credit of 5% beyond 2B? The answer is yes. The additional credit beyond 2B plus 5%, it is only in the interim periods, but by the time you file your annual returns, you have to ensure whatever the credits you are taking is visible in GSTR 2B. So, any doubts to anyone so far? Okay, we will continue.
Section 75(12).
Yeah, there's
In
one
this,
question from Purushottam Ashika. So the question is, what about previous month purchases? Sir, even though the section which is coming 16(2)AA, now the question that comes is it retrospective? Like 7AA, which has been mentioned as retrospective, will this be treated as retrospective or prospective? The answer is it would be prospective, but it would still be considered for the purpose of assessment. So the officer will be treating this for the past purchases also. Now you have also asked a question, if a composition dealer is filing quarterly, how can we take an input? Now composition dealer, whatever the procurement you are making from a composition dealer, you are paying 1%, he is paying 1% turnover tax. The taxes paid under composition is not a tax for which you will get an input tax credit. So whatever you are paying under composition scheme, that is not eligible for input tax credit. If the supplier is filing his GSTR1 quarterly, you can take a 5%, 2B plus 5% for the first 2 months, and in the end of the third month, you can take the credit whatever visible in your GSTR2A. Yeah. Mr. Ranjit, the point on retrospective effect, the provision which has come in, even though it is not retrospective effect, during the assessment, the officers would treat this as if it exists from the beginning. They say wherever the credits are not visible in GSTR 2A, it is likely they will disallow and add a liability. So without you have no choice other than filing an appeal. So you will be going under section 107 and make an appeal to appellate authority. Whatever the supplier, if he is under QRMP scheme and files information furnishing facility IFF, can we take the credit? Question by Ambika. Yes, madam, you can take a credit as long as it is available in your GSTR 2A. The moment someone files IFF, that the data in IFF would also be communicated to the recipient. So that is what the amendment happened in Rule 59 and Rule 60. So you can take an input tax credit. And if you look at the wordings are very clear that it is the details to be furnished in the manner specified under section 37. IFF also included in Rule 59. Okay, we can proceed.
So moving on the next change which is proposed. As we all know that no recovery can be made until and unless a notice is issued to the SSC. However, this subsection 12 of section 75 provide that recovery of tax can be made even without an issue of notice in the case where the SSC has filed their GSTR 3B declaring the amount of tax payable, but he has either not paid wholly or partly. In that case, recovery can be made even without issue of notice. Now, an explanation has been inserted in this subsection to provide that where the SSC in GSTR1, if you have, suppose you have given your details, which is not included in 3B, then on the basis of GSTR1 also, they can proceed for recovery of tax without issuance of notice. Basically, if there is a mismatch between GSTR 1 and 3B, so if GSTR 1, the value which is declared tax payable, if it is more, they can proceed for recovery without issue of notice. So this is this is basically giving the, so we have to understand, government has to understand that we are human and we are bound to make mistakes. There may be any clerical mistake because of which there may be a difference between 1 and 3B. They haven't not given us an opportunity to explain this. They have given the power to the department that they can directly make the recovery of tax. So it's going to impact us a lot. So we have to be very carefully while filing our 1 and 3B that they match. Otherwise, the department may proceed for the recovery. Further, in this, one more thing I want to add, Rule 21, which deals with cancellation of registration. It has also been provided that where there is mismatch in 1 and 3B, the department has also had the power that he can cancel our GST registration. So now onward, we require to be very careful while filing our return that our 1 and 3B match. Otherwise, we may face the consequences.
Yeah, like as rightly mentioned by Ashika, that the government has also amended the amendment made to the rules relating to registration. Under Rule 21, the suo motu cancellation, they have inserted very recently, they have inserted clause E, F, and G, wherein they have mentioned that if value reported in GSTR 3B is lower than the value which is there in GSTR 1, then the proper officer has a power to cancel the registration. So basically, with this new amendment, they have done under section 70, and both 70 for determination of the taxes and the recovery proceedings. Basically, the intention of the lawmaker is to catch hold of those taxpayers who are just reporting the values in GSTR 1 and making supply of goods but not filing their GSTR 3B. Maybe it could be fly-by-night operators. But in the intention of catching hold of them, even the others would get suffered. Like as Ashika rightly mentioned, error is human. Like if we are not making mistakes, then we are not human beings. It will be like robots. There would be situations where that we would have made some error. Like I have copy pasted data from an Excel to the government portal, uploaded, or while selecting the converting a JSON, I have selected the sales register of the previous month. So my B2C of the previous month is the same number which has come in. Any type of error could have creeped in. If you have not noticed that error and you have higher reported the value in GSTR 1, lower reported the value in GSTR 3B, the officer can do multiple things. First and foremost, he can always go to the new rule, Rule 21 Subrule F, and say that I will cancel the registration. Or the next thing is under section 61, the scrutiny of returns, he would say that, okay, you have declared a higher value in GSTR 3B. I will consider that as the final figure and pass an assessment order. And they will generally, these are served on the common portal. So this would, he would say that I will do an attachment to the bank, and the bank attachments are becoming very common these days. So the one has to be very careful and again have a proper software wherein you can do the reconciliation of the data which is there in the books and which is there in the portal. Okay, we have two questions. One question from Ranjit Kumar. If the data is not reflected in 2B but later reflected in 2A, maybe after 5 days, is interest chargeable? The answer is yes. You have availed a higher credit than what you are eligible, so interest is chargeable. Next question from Siddharth. We have requested for revocation of registration, but the central office people are not revocating. We are following up for 4 months over several miles and call to the office also, still revocation did not happen. Mr. Siddharth, okay, I would like to mention it this way. While applying for the revocation, again, we have government has given a SOP. The SOP here it is, if your registration is cancelled, before you file your revocation, you have to file all the returns that are pending. You have to file all the returns that are pending, and then you can file the revocation application. If the revocation application is made and the officer is not acting on it, then you have all the rights to file an appeal to the next level authority. So the procedure for the same is also given in the rules. So what you have to choose is, if you have complied with the law, you can file an appeal and challenge that the registration cancellation is void and not in order. Let's move further.
Section 35. Now, GST audit has been done away by omitting section 35(5), read with section 44(2). So basically, there is no need to get your books, your GST audit done by a chartered accountant or a cost accountant. Now the question arises whether this audit has been removed prospectively or it will be also applicable for 1920. In our opinion, it is as prospective effect. So for 1920, we have to get our GST audit done. From 2021 onwards, we won't be liable. Now, in line with section 35, some changes has been made in section 44 also. Annual return we have to file. There is no change in that. We have to file the annual return. But like as the GST audit has been removed, the reconciliation statement which certified by the CA we used to submit, now it has to be submitted with annual return on self-certification basis. Now the taxpayer would have to themselves certify and submit the reconciliation statement with annual return. In this, it has also been provided the commissioner has power who can, on the recommendation of council, may exempt any class of person from furnishing the annual return.
Yeah. So even though this the section has been removed, reconciliation statement is still there, which means your 9C is still there. It is becoming self-certification. However, you need an assistant of a qualified professional to prepare your GSTR 9 and GSTR 9C. Here again, I would always advise, use some softwares, use some tools which can help you in reconciling this data. As you might be aware, while you are filing your 9 and 9C, you have to classify your turnover rate wise. You have to classify your input tax credit under various expenditure wise. So when you are supposed to do this classification, you definitely need to have a very good software. That's the point number one. Point number two, your responsibility is further increasing. Earlier, at least the chartered accountant is certifying. You can say that, okay, look, someone has audited and they have said, but now you are as an SSE, the responsibility has further gone up, because at the end of your GSTR 9, you are giving a declaration stating that this is true and a correct value. So when you are giving a declaration that this is a true and correct value, then ownership is on you. So you got to be even more careful with the new GSTR 9 and 9C or 9 read with the reconciliation statement. So one has to be even more careful while filing the annual returns in the days to come. And the annual return is always a last opportunity to correct and give a right information that you would want to file. So spend sufficient time with your auditor, and whatever corrections that needs to be done, please carry out those corrections and file your annual returns.
Section 50. In this, basically, we know that it was earlier also proposed that interest will be leviable on net tax liability, that is, the tax which is paid through cash. It time and again it has been proposed in the council and it was also provided in the act. But when the same was notified, it was notified from prospective date, that is from 1st September 2020. So it was creating a lot of confusion. While in the GST Council meeting, they have said that interest would be payable on net from retrospective effect, but while inserting the proviso, why they have been given on a prospective basis. Now, to end this confusion, they have substituted this proviso again by stating that this interest on net liability will be payable on a retrospective effect only, thereby putting end to numbers of litigation where the department has issued notices demanding interest on gross tax liability. And further, it is a deemed fact that interest will be payable on net tax liability, but God knows what the law drafting people were doing, that they have mentioned it, the tax interest will be payable on gross amount.
Yeah. So here again, only one thing which I would like to add is the net basis is applicable if the tax is discharged in accordance with the provisions of section 39. So what is important is section 39. If the tax is discharged in accordance with section 39 means you have paid the tax under 3B. If you are not paying under 3B, you are paying it through section DRC 03, then it is on gross basis. So the net basis is applicable only if you are discharging yourself voluntarily. Couple of points which I would like to mention here. There are some SSCs who did not register, or they registered, did not file the returns from July 2017. Today, the officer is raising a demand note on them saying, please pay the taxes. You cannot go and take a plea saying that, okay, yes, I made a mistake. I agree, I made a mistake. I am now willing to pay the taxes, but I made so much purchases. Please offset that. Allow me to make a payment on a net basis. The answer is no. Unfortunately, the answer is no, because the taxes which you'll be discharging now, it is not discharged under section 73, also not discharged under section 1739 and discharged under section 73 or 74. So the officer would expect you to pay tax on the gross basis, interest also on the gross basis. So it is very important that one has to be very vigilant about filing returns within the due time. So you definitely have again a software. The time again I say, because a lot of corporates, if they open a branch in a different state, they obtain a GST registration. Maybe at the CFO of an organization should have an alert coming every month. So the following are the GSTNs you have asked for, or a chartered accountant himself, if he is filing for say 10 clients, he should get an alert by end of the on 20th saying that these many returns have not got filed. So some alert mechanism you need to have it. A question from Ranjit Kumar. We have paid the interest on gross for financial year 17-18. Can we apply for refund? The answer is yes. You can make an application for refund stating that the refund, the taxes have been paid, interest has been paid on a gross basis. So you have remitted more interest than what you are due from, and you can file a refund application under any other category and claim a refund of it. That is permitted.
Section 83, provisional attachment. Now, this is a very stringent provision. We all know that for recovery of tax, provisional attachment of property or bank account can be made of a taxable person against whom the proceeding has been initiated. But now the changes has been made to cover any other person also. Now they can, for the proceeding against the said taxable person, now they can make a provisional attachment against any person. Means in case of a company, they can make a provisional attachment against a director, company secretary, manager, or any person. But it is specified that any person who will be covered for provisional attachment, it should be a person specified in subsection 1A of section 122. Now, what does section 122 subsection 1A state? In following 4 cases, if that person is involved, then property or bank account of that person can also be provisionally attached. What are that 4 cases? Where the goods, service, or both has been supplied without issue of invoice, or on issue of incorrect or false invoice with regard to any such supply, where invoice or bills has been issued but without supply of goods or services, or both, or where the input tax credit has been taken or utilized but without actual receipt of the goods or service, or both, either fully or partially. Fourth, where the input tax credit has been taken or distributed in contravention of section 20 or rule date mayor. So if any person commits and retain the benefit due to all these 4 clauses, then such person, a provisional attachment can also be made against that such person. We all know if any proceeding has been conducted against taxable person, provisional attachment. Now with this, they have expanded the scope. Even the person who caused and retained the benefit, provisional attachment will be applicable. Further, in this, earlier specific section were provided under which the provisional attachment can be made. Now they have expanded it by covering the entire chapter, starting from the initiation of proceeding till 1 year from the date of receipt of order. So it's quite a stringent provision, because obviously, as any person who is specified under subsection 1A of section 122, there is already a penalty which is equal to the tax evaded or input tax wrongly availed and utilized. But with this penalty, now their property and bank account can also be provisionally attached.
Yeah, so the scope of this section is restricted only to certain clauses of 122, which is like you are supplying goods without invoices, or you are supplying invoices but not goods, and more so the persons revolved in it. So someone who can be a mastermind, and most of the times we have seen these arrests that are happening. They are also arresting the professionals who are involved, because you might notice that the business entities were formed in the name of sweeper, maid. They made as a directors, and they, in their name, the business was carried, but someone other person was the kingpin, and he was conducting the business. So when they try to go and arrest the authorized signatory or authorized representative, they're actually poor people who are not aware. So to attach the bank account, they cannot do anything. So they have included the people who are benefiting from the fraudulent transactions. Again, friends, here I would like to mention one point. The intention is to curb fraudulent transaction, but unfortunately, if there is a genuine person who is caught in this fake trading, even he would be questioned. Like, you are unaware, your transaction might be genuine, but you have purchased from someone who is conducting a circular trading, then again you will also be caught into this. So it is always better to be very transparent and proactive in reporting of the returns.
Section
Please
74.
proceed.
Section 74. It deals with the fraud cases. Now, in this, earlier it was it was earlier it was said that if any proceeding has been concluded under section 74, then proceeding against co-noticee and that main person specifying any penalty under section 122, that is penalty for certain offense, section 125 general penalty, section 129 which deals with detention and seizure, section 130 confiscation of goods. So earlier it was provided if main proceeding is proceeding against main noticee is concluded, it will be deemed that proceeding under this fourth section is also concluded. Now what they have done, they have excluded section 129 and 130, that is detention, seizure and confiscation. So thereby, if proceeding under section 74, that is a fraud case, has been concluded, it will not be considered that proceeding under this two section has also been concluded. Thereby, two separate proceeding will be there. Basically, they have dealing, section 74 has been dealing with section 129 and 130. Similar changes has also been made in section 129 and 130.
Yeah, so the provisions of e-way and confiscations are the penalties under those sections are very high. So if someone can resolve to say 74 and reduce the penalty, so the officer government is now wanting to be very clear. They do not want to reduce the penalty, and they have removed these two sections from section 74.
Section 129. It deals with detention and seizure. Basically, in this, the penalty has been increased basically by section 129, and collection of tax has been removed and imposition of penalty has been enhanced. So whatever they were earlier collecting as a tax, now they have added up in the penalty amount. That was the change they have basically done over here. They have specified penalty in two ways. First for taxable, then another for exempted. Now for exempted goods, there is no change in this in relation to penalty, which was earlier. That is, in case of exempted good, there was 2% of the value of goods or 25,000 rupees is to be given if the owner came forward. That is as usual now also. But in case of taxable good, where the owner came forward for payment, it has been provided that you have to pay 200% of tax payable of such goods. Earlier it was 100% tax plus 100% penalty. Now they have changed it to 200% penalty with no tax. In a similar way, where the owner does not come forward, they have made that penalty equal to value of the goods 200% or 200% of the tax, whichever is higher, you have to pay. Exempted, it is same as which was earlier, 5% of value of goods or 25,000, whichever is less. This is in regard to the penalty with the changes which has been made in section 129. There are also other changes, but before moving forward, sir, do you want to add something?
Yeah, see, the friends, e-way bill penalties are very draconian. In fact, I feel very sad when someone is paying penalty on account of e-way bill, especially there are procedural lapses. Because like as again Ashika mentioned in the beginning, error is human. Imagine I'm making a supply of some electrical equipments and the HSN is say 8607. While doing a data entry in the e-way bill portal, the accountant typed it as 8706. It's purely a data entry error. Now the officer will not take cognizance of it and ask for penalty. And whenever you're hitting a penalty under e-way bill, you will end up paying tax 3 times. One for the supply, second the penalty. Penalty is 200% of the tax. So if you are making a supply of goods worth 1 lakh, goods are moving from here to other place. A simple reason, say your computer did not work printout did not happen, or somewhere internet went down, and the material is very important. And today we know businesses are so competitive, everyone would want to give the added thing. So the material is being carried by the office boy in his vehicle, and in between someone has intercepted. Then they will say that, okay, look, since you do not have an e-waybill, even though you have raised an invoice, let's say that you are under e-invoice procedure, you did an e-invoice, but you did not do e-waybill. The penalty, that say 18,000 is the tax liability for that 1 lakh supply. The penalty for that is 36,000 rupees. And at times it becomes very costly for the businesses if they do not comply with the provisions of the law. Time and again, I will iterate my point. Please use a good software, invest in technology. Today, the technology is so much that if you know that, okay, material did not reach to the place, click of a button, your e-waybill can be renewed. You have raised an invoice, you raised an e-waybill, but you know that, okay, material is not going today, because the time limit for e-waybill also they have reduced. Earlier it used to be 1 day for every 100 kilometers. Now they made it as 200 for every 200 kilometers 1 day. So even that has got changed. So this becomes little complicated for the businesses to conduct. But today softwares are such a way that you do not want an e-waybill, you cancel it. Whenever the material is going, you raise the e-waybill. Material did not reach the destination, the e-waybill expired. 8 hours from the time limit of expiry, you can renew the e-waybills. Please use some technology so that these things can be automated. And trust me, the penalties under e-waybill, both 129 and 130, are very high. So use some methodological procedures so that you are not hit by these penal provisions.
Earlier, it was provided, an option was provided to the transporter that he can, transporter or owner of the goods, that they can release their goods or conveyance on furnishing of security or bond. Now this option has been taken away. So you have to make the payment of a penalty only in cash in order to get your goods or conveyance released. Now, for recovery of penalty, the officer has to issue a notice within 7 days of such detention, and thereafter he has to issue an order within period of 7 days, but from the date of service of such notice. Obviously, he has to give a personal opportunity of being heard before passing an order. So, if the owner of the goods or the transporter fail to pay any penalty within the 15 days from the date of receipt of order, then department has given a power that they can sold off or dispose of the transport and goods. Earlier, if they were unable to pay, then it was liable for confiscation under section 130. Now they can directly dispose as and sold off. There is no need for confiscation. So basically, as I said while discussing section 74, that section 74, 129 and 130 has been de-linked from each other. So no confiscation will be there. Directly they can sold off your vehicle or your goods to recover the penalty. However, to the transporter, they have provided one option that they can, on payment of penalty or rupees 1 lakh, whichever is less, they can release their conveyance. That is for section 129. Sir, over to you.
No comments, you can continue.
Okay. As I discussed, section 74 and 129, in a similar way, changes has been made in section 130, delinking with section 74 and section 129. Now coming to section 107. 107 deals with appeal to appellate authority. In this, basically, we all know at the time of filing of appeal, we have to make a pre-deposits. So it has been provided that at the time we have to make a pre-deposit. So 10% of the amount disputed, 10% of the amount, that is tax which we are disputing, we have to pay in order to file an appeal. Now, for the purpose of section 129 order, means as we discussed, in case of detention and seizure, they have provided you have to pay 25% of the penalty. So basically over here, they have increased this amount so that you have to pay 20 in order to file the appeal.
Yeah, it appears to be 25% of the penalty, but unfortunately, this is equivalent to 50% of the tax. In a normal course, the pre-deposit is 10% of the tax. Now, they have increased the penalty to 200%. For example, I have a tax liability of say 1 lakh. If I want to go for an appeal, in a normal case, the pre-deposit is 10%, which is 10,000. But now I end up paying 25% of the penalty. Penalty is 200% of the tax. So the 1 lakh is the tax. So 200% of is 2 lakhs. 25% of 2 lakhs is 50%, which is 50,000. So this is 50% of the tax. So they have from straight away from 10%, they have jumped to the 50%. Again, 129 is just an e-way provision. So the intention is to curb this fake transaction where someone is moving the goods without the bills, but the genuine taxpayers are also now under hardship. Most of the times the e-way provisions I get calls is, sir, my e-way bill expired. I am almost reaching the destination. I only have another 10 kilometers. The officer is asking me to pay this penalty. What is the option I have? Unfortunately, the officers are very rude and strict because this is a revenue augmentation drive, and the e-way bill penalty is straight away gets added to the state in which the conveyance is held. That state is going to collect, even though the material is moving from let's take example from Bangalore to Calcutta. I am moving the goods. On the way, in between Orissa, some officer has intercepted the vehicle and they are collecting the fine. They are going to collect CGST and SGST of Orissa and not neither Karnataka nor West Bengal. So one has to be very careful here.
Section 157. Section 157 earlier provide a power to collect statistic. Now it has been changed to power to collect information. Now the commissioner or any person authorized by an order, he may ask to furnish information relating to any matter. So it has given ample power to the departmental officers because they may call for any information, bank record, your traveling, anything, your telecommunication, your whatever the calls records. So they can ask for anything which they can use against your proceeding. But in 152, it has been provided that before using it against you, they have to provide an opportunity of being heard. So basically, they will provide one opportunity to you to defend your case. Why should not I use this information? As per this, you may have, on the basis of bank statement, they may say that you are liable to pay 1 crore tax, but you have discharged only 60 lakhs. So why on 40 lakhs I should not? So they will provide this opportunity, but as of now, it does not seem how beneficial it is because department basically move in the fashion they want to move. So this is a change in relation to section 151 and 152.
Yeah, not much one should be worried here, but just one should be aware that especially when there is a fake invoicing, bill trading, circular trading, the AI, which we so-called artificial intelligence, it will say list of the persons who are involved. Suddenly a genuine person name would also come up. So surprisingly, an officer who is there in Dehradun sending a notice to you, please give me what are the items you have purchased from this dealer. Now you might be wondering that who is this officer? I have no presence there, and should I do? Should I give the information? Unfortunately, the answer is yes, you should furnish the information. So they are asking it for various purposes. However, you can ask for a representation in person before you furnishing that information, but you will be served notice to furnish some information about your business, your sale to a customer, or your purchase from someone, or any other information. So that is the power the department has, and this cannot be done suo moto by the officer. It has to be in writing by a commissioner. So commissioner has to approve. Okay, go ahead, please ask the information.
Now, our CGST amendment is over. Now coming to amendment in IGST Act. Basically, over amendment is related to zero rated supply. There are three changes they have made. First, the meaning of zero rated supply has been changed. In that, specifically in relation to SEZ, they have provided that goods and service should be supplied for authorized operation. So until and unless it is supply for authorized operation, it will not be qualified as zero rated supply. So in this, they have restricted the definition of zero rated supply. First change. Second change. Now we know, being an exporter, we have two options. We can do export with payment of tax or without payment of tax. Now, in case of with payment of tax, they have come with certain restriction, that is, it will be available only in case of notified class of person or notified class of goods or service. So only in specific cases only you can offer export with payment of tax. Now, with this restriction, many of the exporters who were exporting with payment of tax and availing the credit on capital goods and using it for payment of IGST, now credit of capital goods may not be available to them. Third change, that is what they have done, they have linked it with the payment received for export proceed. Basically over there, as we know, we can file the refund claim in case of zero rated supply. So it has been provided where there is export without payment of tax. In case of export without payment of tax, it has been provided where we have file and refund and get the refund. However, we have not received the export proceed within the time limit prescribed by FEMA, then we have to refund the refund amount, basically deposit the amount which has been refunded. That is also with interest. We have to refund the amount along with interest, that is 18%. Though at the time of, if there is delay in refund, then they are liable to pay 6%, but we have to refund it by paying 18% within 30 days. Now that 30 days which has to be calculated, it is calculated from the date of expiry of period prescribed under FEMA. We have to make this payment. So these three changes they have provided in zero rated, and with these three changes they have basically restrict the scope of the zero rated supply.
Yeah, again, the government is little strict. Couple of things. Firstly, the supply to SEZ is now purely against the authorized operations. Earlier, it was not that any supply to SEZ is it was treated as a valid thing. But now the government is saying if there is a supply to SEZ, it has to be proved that it is for authorized operation. That is number one. The second, the impact, earlier we had this rule 96B. We always used to question that the rules cannot override the provisions of the act. From where this power is there in rule 96, say asking to get the forex and prove that the forex has happened. This is again, there are exporters who are trying to do a fake exporting. In the name of exports, they used to send an empty cartons, claim export incentives, benefit, and utilize this input tax credit. By the way, generally people used to think what happens, what really happens in a fake circular trading? See, I am making a supply to you, and you are paying the taxes. I am paying the taxes. You are utilizing the input tax credit. Where is the loss to the government? Eventually, most of the people used to transfer this credit such a way, land it into an exporter. This exporter used to make an export of the goods without any real actual exports and withdraw this input tax credit as a refund. Now, there was no mechanism for them to curb, because whenever the exports are made with payment of taxes, whatever the tax is paid, the moment you file your shipping bill number, GSTR1, GSTR3B is matching, automatically the refund used to come. Since the refund is like an automated, so the people ultimately this fake or circular trading is encashed by way of the exporters. So to curb that, they brought Rule 96B. Now, this is how this is hitting the genuine taxpayers. Owing to COVID, there are a lot of cash crisis across. The suppliers and vendors got into a negotiation extended term period, or some of the extended credit notes, some discounts. Now, all these cases will suffer. You have earlier applied and got a refund. Now, since you did not get the forex, you have to return back your refund. This is also very I would say that not a welcome move, but yes, basically the intention is to curb the fraudsters, but genuine taxpayers also are hit. The last one is exports with payment of tax is now will be only a notified class of provisions. So we are slowly moving to the old era where the government can say who can do exports with payment, who can do exports without payment. So this is something which is again now coming into the law. So these are the changes that have happened under IGST Act and CGST Act. Anything else, Ashika?
No, sir.
Okay.
Now it seems good, and GST is no more good and simple tax.
Yeah, it no longer continues to be good and simple tax. So somewhere casually people say it is Gabbar Singh tax. So you should always get scared. Whatever it is, I would always say that we should be, whether harsh, whether right, whether wrong, whether simple, irrespective of it. If a law is prescribing and giving a method or a procedure, as a law-abiding citizens, we have no choice. We have to follow the procedures of the law. With this, we come to the end of the session 1. Let's move to the session 2 on Excel related updates, and especially how do we advance our skills on updating the Excel with the better presentation. So before I move there, Babu, you can share the screen. Let us look at the questions participants have. Okay, question from Ambika. Is there any changes with respect to RCM? Ambika, there is no specific change with respect to the RCM, but couple of things I would like to highlight. Notification number 13 deals with RCM for services. This RCM changes time to time. So the number of entries that are under RCM is increasing day by day. Many people still do not pay reverse charge, discharge tax and reverse charge for the security services they avail, or hiring of vehicles, cab services, they do not pay the taxes. Or if a
maybe we can use this styles from here. No need to go and update. Use some interactive. Okay. See, if I select here south is selecting. If I select west is selecting, central. This is equal matches. If I want to match search matches, for example, EA, wherever EA is matching, suppose from here, from this column, that row should highlight. I'll show this method is okay. If anybody is not understanding, just tell me. I'll show you once again. I'll show you formula also. Number one, we need to select this range completely. Then go to here, new rule, select This one, use a formula to determine which cells to format. Come to here, that's equal to, take this value. Okay, see, this is the mistake I did last time also. To E2. Why I'm mentioning here dollar is you should not move left, equal to J1. J1 should be standard. That's why it's giving before and after J dollar. Fill color, applying say. Simple. We added data validation list. Then we applied this condition formatting formula. We get this output. Okay. I think this is clear. I'll show you method 2 based on content search. We'll see. Here I'll show you how it will work first. Equal to search formula. You know search formula. Anyhow, I'll explain you. In search formula, we have three arguments. Argument number one, find text. Argument number two, within text. Argument number three, start number. This is optional. If it is in square bracket, it is optional arguments. If required, we can use it. Otherwise, we can skip that one. Yeah. In this text, here also we need to close it. Just a minute.
First, you should give what you want to search. So,
Yes, sir. Okay. Yes, exactly. I want to search VA related contents. Search, find text. Is the text? Is the text? Close it. Within the text, block. Here you just add block B or okay. There is no
there is no VA in it.
yes, sir. But it should be it's giving
Comma
error.
You come.
No problem.
You can give if error. There is no value. So give after B3 comma 1.
Is number if it is yeah, that is also is false.
Give use if error. So,
Okay.
okay, no problem. If you however you want, yeah.
Yes, sir. I converted to number wherever it is matching. You want to see that inside value, we can press F9, its calculated value, it is 8. 500 in say, 8. Okay.
VA is appearing after the 8th cell.
Yes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes. That's why it is giving true value. Okay. If I change SE, wherever SE is found, it is changing it to true. Okay. Same formula will just select this data. Okay, Nico, I'll remove that existing conditions. Okay.
Remove it from entire sheet.
Oh, that's it. Okay. Same way, just select this data and go to new rule, formula bar, apply same formula. Okay. I didn't frozen, that's why. Yeah. If I Yeah, we add in above only this one, and you can understand easily. Like search engine. Suppose if you want to see BR related contents from this column, if it is if you add BR, it is highlighting. If you want to check AL series contents, you can find out AL related contents rows. Okay, this is we can call as a search engine, search commands. Okay, up to here, any doubt? Yeah, I'll give you 1 minute. Just check your formulas. Is it right or wrong? Your this is the formula. Only thing you need to select the data range, then you need to apply this formula. Okay, then we'll go to list of commands, how it will help us to prepare reports, which we'll see. So this is highlight cells. So this is my locations. We can treat it as a sales report. By day wise, we can see quantity. Here I want to see greater than 200 quantity. I want to highlight. I'll remove condition format to this cell. I want to highlight 200 above numbers. Just go to home tab, condition formatting. Just list highlight sales rules. There you can select greater than. Here you can give 200. Automatically it will highlight. If you want to give some clear format also, you can give fill yellow color, font red color with bold. You want to apply borders, you can apply border also with some color.
Who is doing full rangoli?
Sir, yeah, this way we can highlight and we can display the numbers to management.
And again, right now what we gave is a static number. That number can also be given at a place
Yes, sir.
wherever we enter. So the objective is instantly we are now able to see the information in one go.
Yes, sir. Same way, if you want to see less than with a different color, you want to see below 50 numbers. Same, we'll apply this below. We'll add red color only. Fill will be little this color. Not always will add red color. Is less than 50 numbers. See, between if you want to see in between 100 to 200, we can add 100 to 200. Okay, 101 to 199. Add only font color bold. This is 101 to 199 values. Based on your reports and management requirements, you can apply these conditions. Initially starting only, I started with this text condition, text, this one as date also. This is duplicate values. It's very useful function. Quickly, I'll show you how it will work. I have product list, but I want a unique list. But I want to see the duplicates also here only. See, we can go and apply this one. It will highlight duplicates where you can find out the duplicates from this list using this condition formatting duplicate values. Yeah, this is very useful when you are presenting numbers to management. You can use these functions and subcommands. Okay, then we'll see top to bottom. Second option, this option. I'll remove these conditions. Add report name. Select data. Go to condition formatting. I want to see top 5 numbers only. We can see top 5 numbers. Suppose bottom 5. This way we can use this function also, these command buttons. We can run it out. Then data bus. This is very interesting and useful commands. Will increase some row height also. Make it center. Whenever we are presenting reports, if we give with some graphical way, management also can easily understand that reports. Yeah, for that one, we'll use first data bus, how it will display. There are some default only. We can use this one solid field or gradient field. Yeah, if you apply this one, it will calculate from back end. That engine will calculate and it will give you that graphical presentation.
So basically the way this works is it takes the highest cell value as the maximum. And now you can see like 241 is completely filling it. When it comes to the 9, it is like 9 divided by 241. How much percentage of it will be occupying in the whole of the ratio. So highest is 248. 248 is now set to 100. Now if 11 over 248 is whatever is the percentage, the cell color will get occupied to that extent. This would indicate to the management whether the performance is achieved, how much is achieved. So it basically talks to the percentage of the data.
Yes. If I take example Bangalore, yes, Sunday, Monday. This way we can compare using this graphical presentation. We can compare the numbers. We have two methods, solid fill and gradient fill. Okay, we'll remove this one. We'll apply solid fill. Is little bold color. If you want to modify, if you want to add something, you can go and change from here. If you want to add something here, if you want to change some colors, manual colors, you can change. If you want to add borders, solid borders, you can add it. Better remove borders. Instead of default, we can change colors also as per our requirement, as per our interest. This is the gateway. Okay. Then moving to color scales. Same, this is also is sheet. I'll increase height. Select data. Just apply color scales. There are some default things. Just apply. It will give you some indications cell wise based on ratios. It will give indications. If you want to change colors, you can go here and edit rule. You can change the colors. Suppose green. Here you want end of colors. You can apply. Then icons. These very interesting shapes. We can use it. I'll show you. uh, Starting I've shown you that symbols inserting using custom format and font. Here we can use, there are some standard icons Excel has given. You want to use this default one, you can use it. Otherwise you can go with the custom format. You can add whatever symbols you want, you can add it. Here 3 directions, four directions, 5 directions are there. I'll go with 5 directions. Based on this, we can compare branch wise performances. Management also can see easily, they can understand easily.
So the green showing to the top, it indicates that it is highest. Red showing to the down, it indicates it is lowest.
Yes,
If
yes.
an arrow is going right side down, it means it is tending towards the lowest. If an arrow is going to the right side up, it is tending towards up. Like the first one is say 141. If I enter say 200, instead of 141, I type it as 200, it will go up. If I enter 175, it works to diagonally up.
Yes.
It is tending to the up. If I enter say 120, it will be static. If I enter 99, it will go to the down. And if I enter say 5, it will be red down. So this is how the data bars work.
Here, if you want to display only symbols, we can display. I'll show you that one. If you want to show only symbols, you can show symbols only. This way also we can present it. If they want to see numbers, they can see in formula bar. See here, if you want to change symbols to different symbols, you can select from here. And also if you want to add conditions also, we can add it from here. Or if you want to reverse this symbols, we can reverse it. See here, it is default, it is changing lowest to top. Okay, then managing roles. Sorry. See, we covered highlight cell rules and top to bottom rules and data bars, color scales, icons. Icons is very, very useful and interactive icon sets if you add this one to your reports. Okay, then new rules. We tried with new rule formulas for formula updating, and also contain also we used it. Based on this, we can use duplicate. If you want to see only duplicates, also we can use this function. Or if you want to see the same numbers. Yes, sir. Up to here, any doubts?
Hope you are following. And any case, this material is with you. I'll be sharing the presentation also.
Yeah, quickly I'll show you one small statistical report. Using this complete condition format, created one small sales report. Yeah, based on management management interest, we need to update this kind of here many areas are there, sales, average sales, number of bills per day, number of bills per bill rate, quantity. Area to area, sometimes management want to review, that time we can add this kind of indications. They can see based on, suppose if they want to see number of bills, quickly they can see the performance from here. Suppose if they want to see the quantity, sale per day quantity, average quantity in CTR, this 44. All by default we can see that symbols, instead of seeing that numbers, we can see here CTR and also HBL. That based on management interest, we can use that condition format. We can apply the condition format to the data. Management also can see easily. They can comment on data if they want to comment. Yeah, yeah, that's it. Thank you for giving opportunity, sir.
Great. It was a very good session, Babu, and very smoothly you have dealt. And I'm sure members got value as to whenever they're presenting data, how the data, instead of a plain numbers, we can present it in a big way and it can be shared to the management. If you have any questions, please put it in the chat or you can unmute and ask. Great. So with this, we have come to the end of today's session. We will be sharing with you the link for feedback. Please give the feedback and let us know what are the sessions that you are looking forward in future. And we will, after you fill the feedback, you will get a link for downloading the material and the session recording. With this, we come to the end of the session. Thank you so much for participating today. Thank you.